Welcome to the Bayou Ballers podcast. We're here on another live episode. I'm your host, Tay Visual. My brother on the other side of the camera there, Trey. How you doing today, bro?
Man, doing good, man. Just got from a work party, so feeling good. Christmas season is upon us, so um, all good vibes, bro.
Okay, happy holidays to all of y'all. I have to give a disclaimer. I do have baby girl in the house with me. I am home alone right now, and as we speak, she is walking up. So that is perfect example of why. Say hey, baby girl. Never mind, she won't get back up. But we're here to talk about some good things that's about to happen, man, in the NFL draft order. And Trey's gonna be more of the host this episode, as y'all see, baby girl wanting to get some words in. But you say you come from a work party. Any
Yes,
interesting things happen at the
yeah,
Christmas
man.
party?
And shit. I left my present in the on the kitchen countertop, but yeah, man, we did a little Secret Santa thing. So
Okay.
um,
You
I
mentioned
got
that last episode.
my boss. He got everybody mascots for their favorite team. So I got a mascot bobblehead of Gumbo. Um, you know what, man? You give me a second. I'm about to go get it just so you can
Go
see.
get it. Go get it. Say hey. Hey, hey, Bayou Ballers. What you say? Okay, watch yourself. Don't mess nothing up here. Okay, we on live, y'all. Of course, he's going to get the mascot for
Sorry
Gumbo.
about that, y'all. So, yeah, man. We got
Okay,
Gumbo.
all
So,
right.
so shout out to my guy Josiah for coming in the clutch there,
Mm-hmm.
and then my boy Avi got me some other stuff. He said some of the stuff obviously Amazon. Some of the stuff coming late. We say he gonna hit me up, and I was Secret Santa for our GA Jackie. So shout out to Jackie. She from Houston, so I got some Houston stuff. Got a candle warmer because that's what she wanted. But it was fun.
The
It
ladies,
was fun.
candle
We
warmers.
went out to eat and everything. Just kind of hung out. So it was pretty cool.
Okay. We're gonna get into our first topic, which was a big thing at the Monday night game against Raiders and
Yes.
Falcons, which
Mhm.
was Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. Was it Washington or Washington State? I think it was
Washington.
Washington. From Washington, top 10 pick.
Yep. Pick
Um,
number 8. Yep.
after is being named the starter in Atlanta after Kirk Cousins signed a $150 million deal this offseason. Took him this is 14 game to be benched. He's been
Mhm.
struggling over the last 6-7 games.
5. Yeah. They 1 and
Yeah,
4 in the
so
last 5. Yeah.
yep. So it finally happened. Atlanta finally pulled the trigger after assuring Kirk that his job was safe during the offseason, that hey, we committed to you right now. Penix is the future. But bad play from Kirk Cousins. I can honestly say he did this to himself. So
Yeah.
what do you think of the move by Atlanta, or is it too soon? They're trying to say they're still in the playoff hunt. They still can win the
Mhm.
division over Tampa.
Honestly, I think it's maybe a little bit too late. I think Tampa put themselves in a pretty good position when, we kind of thought Atlanta had a really good lead. Well, they had maybe a 2 or 3 game lead in the division because they had swept Tampa Bay, and obviously had beaten us and were in position to sweep us as well. So in a really good spot. And then they go on this 4-game losing streak, and Tampa Bay starts to kind of get hot at the right time. And Kirk was just bad. He didn't throw his first touchdown like in that losing streak until against the Raiders. That was his first touchdown in I think 4 games or something like that. And 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions over the last 5. You're 1-4 or 1-4 in those games. It was just bad. And I thought they kind of could have pulled the trigger sooner, but I guess they kind of were thinking, man, the contract. And, you find yourself, you're in a position that, hey, we can probably sneak in and win this division. Let's say if, Tampa Bay happens to lose 2 of the next 3. They're playing against a Dallas Cowboys team, obviously without Dak Prescott, but Cooper Rush has been playing fairly well in, replacing Dak Prescott, and that could be a game. Their defense is still really good, so they could give Tampa Bay some struggles. And if Tampa Bay slips that game, that puts a lot of pressure on them to have to beat the New Orleans Saints that last game of the year. Whereas Atlanta kind of has a little bit of an easier schedule, and we saw that because I think had they played any good team, they probably would have lost. Actually, there's no probably. They definitely would have lost. But the Raiders, they're in their own tank job right now, going toe to toe with the New York Giants to try to see who would get the number 1 overall pick. And so it just kind of was a good time. I mean, you picked Michael Penix Jr. 8th overall. I think anybody that knows more about the situation knew that was not something that was expected by anyone in that organization. Obviously, we know Kirk Cousins didn't expect it, and even the owner didn't expect it, Arthur Blank. So the fact that you drafted this guy and you held him on the bench as long as you did, it's a good opportunity. I think just Kirk isn't as healthy as he would have liked to be. And that's one of the things we talked about, right? When you draft Michael Penix Jr., now instead of Kirk kind of having a year to really kind of get himself in the flow, he's like, well, yeah, I got paid, but this is the NFL. And you just drafted a guy 8th overall. Now I have to press. And I felt like Kirk started to press and his body just isn't taken to what he wanted to do. A lot to do with that Achilles injury. We're seeing Aaron Rodgers struggle coming back from Achilles injury. So that's not a surprise, given the nature of that injury and, of course, their age playing a factor. But you drafted Michael Penix Jr. with the top 10 pick. This is his opportunity to shine. You're still in the playoff hunt, and who knows what could happen. I would love for him to suck because I know that we had our eyes on him and they wanted to take him. So you know what?
That's cool, man.
I'll pay Kirk all that money. Then you bench him a lot sooner than maybe you wanted to, and maybe he thought he would. And now I just want Michael Penix Jr. to not look as good. So now there's a lot more question marks going, right?
Hey, I would like for him to look good. Maybe I'll force the Saints to commit to something at quarterback.
It might.
The NFC South doesn't have no star-studded quarterback. But do you think bringing him in this late with playoff chances still probable? Do you think there'll be too much pressure on him?
No, and I only say that because I feel for them to have made the change that they made, given the stakes still left in their season, I think in a way that kind of shows that, hey, we're done with the Kirk Cousins experiment, and we got to start to see what we have in this guy, and get him ready and get him his reps. Because the last thing you want is for, I guess, Michael Penix Jr. to have gone a whole season without playing meaningful football. And so I think you want to get a good look at him, because you don't make this change because you can't go back to Kirk Cousins now, in my opinion. I don't know, but I don't think you make this change if you have any plans on going back to Kirk Cousins, and you just got to get to look at the guy, and see what you have and see what you can utilize the offseason to build off on. But if you don't give him any playing time at this point, you're kind of really starting from scratch in terms of trying to evaluate your top 10 pick at the quarterback position. So,
I'm in and out on mute, you guys, because obviously baby making noise. But y'all gonna hear a little bit of it. I'll say this: what is the scenario with Kirk Cousins now? Obviously he's a vet quarterback. He's got his money. He's made a lot of money over his career. You got a nice contract. What is their situation with that contract? Are they able to get out of it, or do you know any information about it?
Yeah, they are. He's owed $27 million next year, which is a very tradable contract in this era of quarterback contracts. Basically, if they keep him on the roster, they're going to end up having paid him well over $90 million, and you just got to kind of eat that. So it's a very tradable contract. The crazy thing is they gave him a no trade clause. So I was reading a report where they said, hey, there's a chance that Kirk Cousins just might play hardball and might say, you know what, I'm not going to ask for a trade.
I think he probably won't do that because, hey, unless he just won't sit on the bench and pout.
Hey, I'll sit on the bench, pout, and get paid because you have to pay me. Because basically, if they cut him, if they cut him, they're going to have to pay him the money that they owe him. If they're able to trade him, the other team can take on that contract, which is why the $27 million could be attractive for a team that just wants a bridge guy. But basically, he was caught off guard that you drafted Michael Penix Jr. in the first place. As you mentioned, he was given assurances that, hey, this is a future thing. This isn't a we're looking this season to replace you. So you go back on your word there. What's the like? Why should he give you some grace in his situation? Because he doesn't have to. I mean, you
They
can
don't
have
have
a
to give
great
each other
deal on
grace,
him,
right? I
right?
wasn't mad at Atlanta move for drafting Penix when people like, oh, they owe Cousins this. They don't owe him nothing. He's a new quarterback they signing off the
Yeah,
market. He has no ties to them. They didn't draft him. He's coming
yeah,
off
but
an Achilles injury. So I thought
but you
that was
gave
good
him a fully
insurance to get.
guaranteed deal. I think that's what
Yeah,
it
but it
was,
wasn't
right?
much though. It's not a lot though
Yeah,
in quarterback money, I should say. It's not a lot
right,
in quarterback money.
right.
So that's why I was like, okay, especially since he was off the Achilles injury. He's
Mhm.
mid-30s, not a top tier quarterback.
Right.
That he can be a good quarterback on it. Could be a great quarterback on his best day. He can sling it. He definitely
Yeah.
can. But he's more of a, I'm not gonna say average, but a little bit
Mhm.
above average quarterback.
Yeah.
So
But you also don't pay the guy that money to start 14 games for you. I
it's
think
Atlanta.
you easily could have said, and it's kind of similar to what we said about the Saints situation. I mean, you could have had a cheaper option on the roster if you wanted to draft a quarterback, and your owner would have approved of it if that's what you wanted to do. You could have had Taylor Heineke be on the roster, making a much smaller deal than what you gave Kirk Cousins, and honestly still be doing the same thing and getting Michael
Winning
Penix
six,
Jr. ready
seven
to
games.
start. And you didn't do that, and now you're on the hook financially. So as a general manager, you better pray to God that Michael Penix Jr. looks the part, because
Mhm.
not only have you signed a guy to a big deal or convinced me as an owner to give the money to sign a guy to a big deal that you didn't even let finish the season. We created a quarterback controversy for no reason by drafting a guy top 10, and he's not even good. So I don't know. My boy or that Font is it Fontenot? Is that his last name? That used to be with the Saints. That's the GM now. I can't remember his
I'm not
last
sure.
name. But I know he's got to be looking like, man, I hope something work out, because your prize free agent didn't work out. Now you got to hope your marquee draft pick works out. So we'll see.
Hey, we never know. It might not be over for Cousins over there. You know how the NFL works, man. Let's move on to the NFL draft order coming into shape right now with
Mhm.
the currently the Las Vegas Raiders at with the number one pick. I'm gonna pull it up
Okay.
for you guys to see on the screen. Let me zoom out over here though. So, but let's get this on the screen. All right, everybody see it? You see it, Trey?
I got it.
All right, we got the Vegas Raiders at number 1, Giants at 2, Patriots 3. Patriots had the number 2 pick last year, right? No, number 3. They had
They
number
had
3
three.
with Drake
They had
May.
three last. Yep.
Yep,
Yep.
Drake May. Jacksonville up at number 4, fresh off of giving Trevor Lawrence 200 and about what 70 million.
Yep.
Carolina up there again. Tennessee is going to be looking for a quarterback most likely. Cleveland Browns, I don't know, should be
Could
looking
be.
for a quarterback. But I don't know if
Could
they
be.
will be, but I think they might pull a trigger finally.
Mhm.
The Jets, who knows, should be looking for a quarterback, but that might be too late to get a quarterback they want.
Mhm.
Chicago Bears won't be looking for a quarterback. Might be looking for O-line. And New Orleans Saints can be looking for a quarterback, wide receiver, running back. But I'm looking at these teams, Trey. If we stay 10 and under, which I think we can, looking at the teams after us.
Mhm.
Um, Hopefully, I'm trying to see what team can jump us. I don't know. We're not gonna be. Maybe the Bears. Oh no, they're gonna lose all their last 3 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Looks like maybe the Saints lose their last. No, I can't see the Saints losing all 3. They
I think
might
they
go
go
1 and
1 and
2.
2. I
Yeah,
think they
1
go
and
one
2.
and two. Yeah.
But I can see the Jets beating Miami. But who knows? We don't know. But it looked like the Saints can finish probably 10. It looked like they're right where they need to be at.
Right.
Looking at these schedules, unless that look like they're gonna finish 10. That's what I'm going with. 10 or lower, hopefully. Hopefully the Bears win all 3 of their games and we fall to 9 or 8. But
Right. Right.
I'm looking at these teams. How do you think let's go with what positions you think they will pick? Because the
Yeah.
Saints, we can be looking at a wide receiver. I would definitely love Ashton Genty.
Mhm.
I was in love with Jameer Gibbs.
Yeah.
And I think Genty is explosive, not as fast as Jameer, because he lives up to
Yeah,
his nickname in Sonic.
right.
But Ashton Genty, I would love him at 10. Do you see any of these teams taking a running back? Let's start with the Raiders.
No. And I can
Mhm,
just kind of just skim through it. I mean, I'm looking at them right now. Number 7 is probably the Cleveland Browns, is a team that could say, you know what, we'll take a chance on Ashton Genty. When you think about Nick Chubb's injury issues the past few years, actually just broke his foot, so going to be dealing with another significant injury to his lower body.
mhm.
Um, and was already kind of coming in with some injury issues from college when he came to the NFL. So I can see them because that
Ooh,
contract. I know everybody's saying, man, they should probably go quarterback, but that contract with Deshaun Watson is just going to be so hard
this
for
is
them
third
to.
year with them, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yes,
think
third
so.
year. They might be
And
ready to cut bait after
yeah,
next
but
year.
it's so hard, and I feel like the ownership group, the front office, they're just like, we got to get our money's worth on this guy at this point,
Mhm,
because they kind of just feel like we're not good enough to just feel like, okay, we'll move off of him and then just have a guy that changes our fortune. So it's almost like we just got to get what we pay for and just hope he can kind of stay healthy, and do something.
mhm.
But that's a team that I think can go best player available and go after the running back position.
You know what I'm
Obviously,
looking
go
at?
after
Not to
some of.
cut you off, Trey.
Go ahead.
I definitely can see the Panthers getting Genty, giving Bryce Young some help with Chuba Hubbard back
Yeah,
there. I'm looking at it now.
I
I definitely can
could,
see that. But they
I
need wide
could, but
receiver help
I
as
think they're
well.
probably, yeah, I think they're probably in the market for the wide receiver
Yep,
position.
I definitely yep, I can see one of
Um,
those. But go ahead. You can finish my bad.
Yeah, but no. So I just think Cleveland, where they are in the quarterback situation, man, it's just so hard for
Mhm,
them to draft a quarterback in the top 10. I mean, it's like the Kirk Cousins situation on steroids when you look at the guarantees that Deshaun Watson has, and you just kind of want to do what you can to get the
mhm.
most, to squeeze as much juice as you can out of that contract before obviously cutting bait in the next year or two. But who knows? Miami, that's always a team that might jump us and say, "Hey, we really like this Genty guy." They
Mhm,
need to have more of a focal point in the running back room. They kind of have some guys, obviously guys with speed, but they
mhm.
don't have what you would call a bell cow at that running back position. And wanting to get to some relief in terms of him having to pass as much as he does when he is in the game and healthy.
And I
Maybe having a guy that can take that load off and run the ball, and then now you got some safeties coming down, and you can do a little bit more over the top stuff with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Wilder, which we haven't seen them be able to do because they're
I
playing
think
against a lot of too high. So
I definitely can see that for the Dolphins. One thing I have pushback about that is Mike McDaniel, their coach. He's
he
not a
don't have
heavy
any
run
play.
guy. He's
No.
from that tree like McVay. They
Mm-hmm.
just not that those type of coaches. McVay was killing the Saints with running the football. Everybody was watching the game like, hey, if he keep running, it's over.
Yeah.
Like I remember a drive. I think they ran the ball like 8 times, and they just drove
Mm-hmm.
down the field just running the ball. But McVay, he goes back to the pass a lot. When he could just run the ball effectively with Kyron Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike McDaniel is the same way. Tua throws the ball a lot. Ever since he came back, I haven't pulled the stats on his attempts since he got back healthy, but I'm pretty sure he's right up top. And surefire so with the weapons they have. Jonu Smith, Tyreek Hill, Wilder, we know those guys. A Shane out of the backfield. I believe they still have Mostert.
They do.
But so they have some speedsters out there, but I don't know if it'll fit Mike McDaniel
Yeah.
play calling. But hey, when you got a playmaker like that in the backfield, you got to give him the ball.
Yeah.
Anybody else you see?
As far as jumping up, I mean, obviously you see the Cowboys behind us. They could be a team. Cincinnati is a team. When you think of what's going on with the wide receiver situation and wide receiver being a position of
Mm-hmm.
interest for the Saints too. I mean, honestly, the Saints are just in a sweet spot where I think you can probably get a
Get
good defensive player that you want. Then you can get a good wide receiver that you want. Obviously, I think you can go best player available. We're talking about Will Johnson at cornerback. Talking about Ashton Genty at running back.
mm-hmm.
I mean, if you just feel like you want to go quarterback that high, maybe a guy like Jalen Milroe, you take that chance on at number 10. But to your point, I think if we get anywhere beyond that, like if we get to 13,
Yeah,
15, it's going to be really hard.
that's the big difference.
And honestly, being that pick number 10, and let's say we fall to pick 8 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do I think you're in a sweet spot to where you can get a good player where you are, I think you're kind of in the sweet spot if you want to take a risk to move up. And get a guy, whether it's the quarterback of the future. Obviously, I don't think any of these teams up here are going to say, we're going to give you our pick so you can draft Shador, you can draft Cam Ward. But what if a guy like a McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, what if that's a guy you really, really want? Like Jacksonville Jaguars, they probably want somebody on the defensive side of the ball. They have the wide receiver one and Brian Thomas Jr. Obviously, Evan Ingram is a big part of their offense at the tight end position. So they have some of the offensive personnel that they want. They're likely looking for a defensive guy. Mm-hmm. What if we swap spots? And we get that top wide receiver? Because I think the first two teams, they go quarterback. New England probably going Travis Hunter. He can help on both sides of their ball, of their team, but they really need a playmaker offensively. And now you get McMillan. If you're the Saints and you move up, and I kind of think you're able to jump Carolina, who is probably going to wide receiver too, and you got options. So I'm interested to see where we fall.
One thing I'll say is I'm looking at the top 10, and obviously I think the tops, I should say 7, will probably be the top 7 teams. And I know 3 quarterbacks will be off the board going to the Raiders, Giants, Titans. I'm for sure of that.
Titans, I don't know if the Titans going quarterback first round though. I'm not so sure of that.
I'm sure. I'm going to be sure on that. That's going to be my prediction. But why you say no?
I think so. They say you got a guy like Sam Darnold on the market that's going to, that has drastically increased his market. I think you have a coach over there now that wants to try to win and have a veteran presence that gives him a really good chance. And maybe even I know reports are saying they're all out on Will Levis, but maybe it's a situation where the guy just needs more time to develop. And you bring in a guy like Sam Darnold that can help with that. A guy like Derek Carr is going to be on the trade market.
Right.
A guy like Kirk Cousins is going to be on the trade market. You play in a division where anything can happen. I mean, you go on a good streak and you can win the AFC South. It's not as if they have a true dominant team. Obviously, the Houston Texans are probably the kings of the AFC South right now, but
they haven't played well this year either. Though.
Right. In our last episode, we were talking about the Colts being in position before they lost. Obviously, their most recent game for the Broncos, them being in a position to maybe catch up to the Texans and win the AFC South. So there's a lot of room for another AFC South team to get involved. And I think the Titans may want a veteran maybe and not so much another young guy because that takes time. So I don't know. You could be right. They could say, "Hey, we're going to draft a quarterback, in the top 10 with our first pick." But
I wouldn't be mad at that for the Titans though, because they spent a lot of money this past offseason bringing in talent because obviously they wanted to compete. And they brought in weapons for their quarterback Will Levis. They got some pieces on the defensive end. So if bringing in a veteran quarterback who can, I guess, right the ship or just play average quarterback and not make too many mistakes, that might be beneficial to their team. Might change a 3-win team to probably 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah.
So you never know. But we're gonna nail it down to 2 quarterbacks then.
Okay.
Giants and Raiders. We know they're going quarterback for sure. Jaguars, Patriots. Honestly, I can see Travis Hunter going to either one. I'm not mad at it. They just need best players, them 2 right now. Carolina, we agree they might go offensive weapon, mainly wide receiver. Who is wide receiver 1 in this draft?
I would say McMillan from Arizona is wide receiver 1, and that's for me. That's just because I put Travis Hunter as athlete. Like
Okay.
he can
Yeah.
do it. He can do like if he was like, I'm just gonna play wide receiver at the next level, number one wide receiver. He says I'm just
Yeah,
gonna play
baby.
cornerback, number one cornerback for me. But he's a number one athlete. I just think the two teams, they just really need a quarterback. So while Vegas probably could say, hey, I'm just gonna get the best player available, draft Travis Hunter, and figure out the quarterback. I don't know if that's the best thing for you right now. You need a franchise quarterback. Uh, there are reports now, so everybody's kind of assuming that New York is going to draft, Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, whoever falls. But there's been some talks that, hey, they may go Travis Hunter and they may go the veteran route. Because when you think of Brian Daboll and he's kind of on the hot seat, is he going to get the luxury of growing with a rookie quarterback? Or would he want a guy like Sam Darnold to come in? Would he want a guy like Justin Fields to come in and maybe be that bridge quarterback for them to maybe look at, the 2026 quarterback class to bring somebody in? So that's kind of the mystery here, because I think we have the assumption that the New York Giants are going to go quarterback, and more than likely that being Cam Ward. But there's a possibility they say to themselves, we just want the best player because we don't feel like we're a quarterback away and we just need talent. And they could go Travis Hunter. So that would be interesting to see too.
They could. They definitely could. I could see that. And hey, let's be honest. Not to go there, but the Giants have never had a black quarterback other than Tyrod Taylor start a game for them. So
Yeah, that's true.
you never, I
And
don't
Geno
want to bring
Smith,
that up, but it's a
started the games for them too.
for the Giants.
Yeah, he
Play
was
for the
Eli's
Giants.
backup. Yeah, he was Eli's
I did
backup.
not know that, but I know Tyrod started. But hey, I did not know that about Geno. But those two then recently, so maybe they've been turning over a new leaf. But we'll see when the draft comes. Any surprise picks you think will happen at trade ups? You don't have to have a team. Do you have a team that you think gonna jump into the top 10 for a quarterback?
For a quarterback, let's go all the way down. I think the Seahawks could be a contender. They're way at 18. They're looking for their future too at that quarterback position. Geno's getting up there in age. His deal is starting to come to a close, and it doesn't look like there's a extension coming. So I can see Seattle maybe looking. Let me see. Rams maybe. That's a stretch. And I think like a Pittsburgh, they may stay where they are. I can see them drafting a quarterback where they are at 26 and having that person sit behind Russell Wilson. And that's assuming they can't retain Justin Fields, because reportedly they would love to have Justin Fields back so that he can kind of continue to sit behind and develop behind Russell Wilson, who probably has maybe another year or two left anyway. But if there's going to be a team that trades up in the top 10, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be for a quarterback. It's going to be for guys like Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Will Johnson. It's going to be for guys like that, just some playmakers, whether it be the trenches or offensively. You might see somebody trade up for maybe a Luther Burden. There are a lot of edges that are getting some love, that are just kind of starting to come on late now that we're at the end of the college football season, or at least regular season. So you can see some teams maybe trading up for a guy they feel might be a premier edge or a premier linebacker, a guy like Jahai Campbell coming out of Alabama if he does decide to declare. So I think there are going to be a few trade ups, but not necessarily for quarterbacks. And I would say maybe even pay attention to the back end of the draft, because I think once Cam and Shador are off the board, I think you may see some teams, that have that flag behind you, that if there's a possibility, they could come back and get that quarterback. So pay attention for things like that too, because there's going to be a run on quarterbacks when you think about Jalen Milroe, possibly Carson Beck, Curtis Rourke maybe coming out. So Dylan Gabriel. So there will be a run on quarterbacks probably day 2, but there may be some folks that say, hey, I want to try to get back in the first round, get that 5-year contract for that quarterback and bring them in the fold and maybe have them sit behind whatever veteran I have on the roster. But I know I have 5 years on that contract, so I can see something like that too.
Okay. Let's move out of the draft for now. As we
Mhm.
see it, the last three games fold. Fold how the last three games fold out. We'll see where everybody winds up at, how the top 10 winds up, and hopefully our
Mhm.
Saints wind up on top five. Um,
Stuck that in there, top five.
give us a chance at Travis Hunter, man. We'll take that, man. Dion, stay
Yeah.
where you at. Let him come to New Orleans and eat. Let's talk about the Thursday night game, Chargers versus Broncos. This we
Mhm.
talked about last week. Well, we
Mhm.
thought the 7 teams would fall. I had the Chargers at the last spot. I had the Broncos overtaking them.
Mhm.
Broncos beat the Colts, and they are from the record. I got to look at the draft thing. We still got it pulled up. The Broncos are 9-5, and the Chargers got spanked by Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
who are in the
Nah,
Chargers are
eight and
now
six.
8-6. So the Chargers have a weak schedule: New England and Vegas to end the
Mhm.
year, plus Denver. So and the Broncos have a tough schedule. Since he's going to play them tough, KC is definitely never know if they're going to be playing their starters, but
Right.
obviously Denver has a tougher schedule. Do you still? I still think Denver will
We'll overtake
yeah
Chargers.
will overtake the Chargers will have a better record than them and get that fifth spot in the
Mhm.
playoffs because I think the Broncos will beat them head to head this week. And I don't know. Maybe the Broncos beat the Chiefs. They have nothing to play for that week. They
Mhm.
damn near beat them with the block field goal. So even if they not playing, even if they're playing their starters, I still have faith the Broncos can get a win because they
Mhm.
have more to play for. And Mahomes is now gimped. So what do you think? Chargers
I,
beat Broncos this tomorrow, or Broncos beat Chargers?
man, I think the Chargers. I'm going to still roll with them in terms of
Mhm.
having their spot, and I think they, um, honestly, I think they win out. Just kind of looking at the three games they have,
Yeah, that is
and they had a pretty good lead. They were doing well against Tampa, and then just kind of, Todd Bowles just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start blitzing. If you can't stop it, we'll change the tide. Kind of what he did against the Saints,
uh-huh.
um, and they were able to do that versus the Chargers. And we got to keep in mind, Justin Herbert is still dealing with a high ankle sprain and
Okay.
playing through that. So it wasn't as if he could necessarily move and try to evade the pass rush as much as it was coming. So I think they get the win against Denver, and I
Yeah.
think they tend to win out because I guess luckily for them, they're playing the last two games against teams that want to lose.
Yeah.
So and playing for draft position, so that kind of gets them in at 11-6 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, the Broncos kind of have a tough schedule on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, obviously, you're playing your game tomorrow night. And then you have Cincinnati, who is still technically in playoff position.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a shot at the spot, so they're going to be giving their all. And then to your point, we don't know what's going on with Patrick Mahomes and his health. He was a full participant in the most recent practice.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that they just need to sit him.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to sit him these next two, maybe because they want to solidify the top overall seed, maybe win a couple games in a row.
Right.
I believe you have to sit him the last game, let him get some more rest if things aren't looking well for him health wise. So,
Okay. Um, and mind you, the Chiefs have to finish with a better record than the Bills because the Bills beat
mhm.
them head to head. So they might want to try to get as many wins. Maybe if the Bills lose, they'll sit Mahomes next week. So, but
and
the
and
Bills,
I will say, and Andy Reid doesn't typically like to sit starters or at least sit them the whole game, the last game of the year. Like he'll at least try to give them a quarter or something, and before sitting them. So,
okay. I pulled up the last Broncos Chargers game. The Chargers beat them week 5. Well, week 6,
mhm.
23 to 16. So they will split if the Broncos beat them. So
Mhm.
it will come down to if they have the same record, I believe, division record after that.
Yes,
It will
I
come
think it's
down to
division,
division record.
and then
So
it's
conference record.
in his conference record.
All right. So this is a big game. If the Chargers win with the last two games they have, and she's blowing a balloon next to me, you guys, that is the noise.
It's all good.
So if the Chargers beat the Broncos this week, they might be able to lock this the playoff position up because the last two
Mhm.
games are pretty easy. But I will say this: the Chargers are having trouble scoring the ball, man.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
season, we always seen Justin Herbert. He has the arm talent, has everything you need to be a great quarterback, but just hasn't brought it into form. He's got a stable coach now, who likes to run the football, but still, there's been opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
Herbert, but they just don't move the ball as I guess we thought a high quality quarterback like he would do.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts why you think they can't get more points on the board?
I think part of it is his injury. And I think they're probably more focused on time of possession and controlling the clock with the run game because they know their quarterback is a little hampered. But eventually, especially if they want to be the team they want to be, you kind of can't play it safe anymore. You got to start letting Justin Herbert play the game or don't have him play at all. And I mean, it's been about 4 or 5 weeks since his injury, so he should be getting closer to being as close to 100% as you can be at this point in the year. But they got to start opening up because, to your point, you can't struggle to score the ball in this league. Even some of the worst teams in the league can get up on you if you're not putting points on the board and trading field goals and touchdowns. So.
Moving off the Thursday night football game, you think Chargers win? I think Broncos win. We split here. We're gonna go into the Saints quarterback situation with Jake Hayner being benched last game.
Mm-hmm.
In a in the first half. He didn't get to come out in the second half and try to show what he had to I guess what can I say? Re reignite the fan base.
Yeah.
Fan base wasn't too excited. I'm happy with the first half by the Saints. I'm not just gonna say Jake Hader, but the Saints as well, because they did give up 2 touchdowns to Terry McLaurin. But is this Jake Hader's last year with the Saints?
I think it is, or at the very least, I can see a situation where there's someone else brought in as competition for him. Especially let's say if Spencer Rattler gets an opportunity these last 3 games, plays well enough to where you say, okay, we can at least try to build around this guy going into next off season and going to the next into the regular season. And let's say we say, okay, we're going to bring in a veteran quarterback. Let's say Jimmy Garoppolo, Carson Wentz, whoever it may be, Justin Fields.
God no.
Yeah, but to come in and compete, and then now Jake, where before he was just competing to see if who's going to be holding the clipboard pretty much behind Derek Carr. Now you're competing to see if you're going to have a spot on this team. And we got to keep in mind there's a possibility there will be a whole new head coaching staff that has no affiliation to our organization at all. And they're going to want to bring their guys in and have their philosophy. So there's a big chance that Jake Hayner doesn't make it. Let's say if Spencer Rattler doesn't show himself to be worth anything these next 3 games, there's a chance that he doesn't make it, depending on who's the guy that's making these decisions. But pulling Jake Hayner, honestly, according to Spencer, he said he was told with 30 seconds left in the second quarter that he was going to start in the second half. So you pretty much had already made up your mind that, hey, we're moving off of him and going with Spencer. I think they kind of showed you that you didn't really want to go with Jake in the first place, or part of you felt like
Bingo.
we'll give him the opportunity. We'll give him the opportunity because we know how he felt when he got passed over, because he's one of those people that believe in titles. And he thought, oh, I've been the backup quarterback the first 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. I'm supposed to be the guy that gets the nod. So you know what, Jake? We had a few more weeks when Derek got back. You were the backup quarterback. We're
Bingo.
going to give you your shot. We're going to give you a shot to show that, hey, we screwed up the first time. And technically speaking, the guy that made the decision isn't here anymore. So you know what? We're going to do you a solid, give you an opportunity to show us something. And he showed us nothing. He continued to look like a deer in headlights. Yes, he had some pretty good plays. Obviously, that angle route to Alvin Kamara that went for almost 30 yards. Had a beautiful ball to MVS that he dropped. Had another big play called back via penalty. So, yeah, you can say, well, that kind of ruined his momentum. Well, in this league and at that position,
It
you can't
happens.
let things like that ruin your momentum.
All right, it
Wide receivers are
happens.
going to drop the ball. Offensive linemen are going to hold every now and then. And let's talk about that holding. It was very questionable. Let's talk about that. But offensive linemen are going to hold sometimes because they've lost leverage on their block, and they'd rather hold the defender
To
than let
save
the
you.
defender hurt you. So those things are going to happen. So we can have this pity party of like, oh, well, they didn't play well, and these things happen for Jake. But you know
Yes.
what? It's football. It's going to happen. At that quarterback position, you have to rise above that. And Spencer Rattler is going to be in similar situations where we saw it already. Wide receivers dropping passes. He was behind a makeshift offensive line. But in his 3 starts, that started to become a thing where we said you can't do it the quarterback position, and that's turn the ball over. We can forgive, hey, you probably get sacked a little bit more because we have a makeshift offensive line, literally signing our center off the street, and he's starting the game, right? Or we know that you only get Olave for essentially maybe a few quarters because he gets injured, and Shaheed dealing with what he was dealing with. So we understand the dynamics that our quarterbacks deal with, but there's going to be some things where you just have to rise above it to a degree. And we saw Spencer Rattler do that in the second half. He was able to move the ball. And hey, we all watched preseason, right? And we saw that of the 3 quarterbacks, that number 18 happened to move the ball the best out of everybody. And the statistics showed that because he led more scoring drives than any quarterback on the roster during the preseason. So the fact that he came in the second half was 4 for 4 in scoring drives. And honestly, if the TikToker doesn't have brick hands, we're talking about a Saints win at that 2-point conversion. So the guy has shown you a little bit, but he hasn't shown enough to warrant, oh, we want to look at a quarterback upgrade next offseason. So now he has at least possibly this game against Green Bay on Monday night to show some flashes, show some light, whether it's this current staff or a new staff that's coming in that says, okay, I can work with this guy. And we haven't even touched on Derek Carr, who reportedly from, I think, Ian Rappaport is saying that he's still trying to make his way into the starting lineup at some point within these final 3 games. And not because he'd be healthy enough to do it, but I think they said if he gets his grip strength in his left hand, they'll just give him some numbing, like a numbing shot, so he won't feel the pain of the 2 fractures that he has in his hand, which I think is insane for a number of reasons. I think it's insane for Derek Carr because, bro, we're not going to the playoffs. We are eliminated. And why would you risk that coming back to play for nothing? Also, let's talk about the Saints. If this guy further injures that hand, you're in for $30 million because you already have to pay him $10 million. And if he's injured 3rd day of the new league year, you owe him $30 million. And you're probably going to say, well, we got to keep him on the roster then if I'm paying him that much money. So there's a bind that the Saints are in because do you put the guy in or do you try to cut him before the new league year and then have to deal with maybe a suit against you from Derek Carr and the NFLPA Players Association. So there's a lot going on, a lot of the gamesmanship between the organization and Derek Carr. Because it's like if Derek Carr says I want to play and we don't play him, then it's, well, why didn't you play him? Did you not play him because he's injured, or did you not play him because of what? Is it performance or whatever it might be? So there's a little bit of gamesmanship dealing with Carr's camp and the Saints camp. But bro, I think we can agree, right? We would love Spencer Rattler to have these 3 games, show us what he has. If he has nothing, we can start, making our mock drafts and going for quarterback, right? Or if he does show a little something, maybe we can talk about, some of these other positions of need that we can upgrade at and get some guys around him. So, I mean, what do you think about the quarterback situation?
The only way I'm drafting a quarterback if Spencer looks horrible, like just bad these last 2 games. In all the games I've seen, he's never looked horrible. He's never looked like lost. We had a couple when you had agreed on a couple things where they didn't even one game they didn't even let him play. Basically, Clint Kubiak and Dennis Allen just closed the playbook on him. Like we didn't take no shots down the field. Everything was dink and dunks. The one time we did let him throw the ball, it was before halftime, if you remember. and he got to push the ball down the field, and we got a field goal before the half. But Spencer, he has the ability to be a good quarterback. Obviously, you got to show it, but he has the scrambling ability, the improvising, to off script plays, the making plays with his legs, not just scrambling, but getting outside and making those deep runs, those runs that just kill a defense where they got everything on the backside handle. But he just makes a play, kind of like the Mahomes third down plays and Josh Allen type plays, but not in those big of situations. But I want to see Spencer more these last 3 games. I want to see him play great. Okay, you can wait. Yeah. All right, give me a second. All right, I'm coming. All right. All right. But if Spencer Rattler, I just want him to play great, but the Saints to lose. If I can get both of them, that'll be perfect. If he can play great and lose, because I don't see no situation where I would draft a quarterback unless we're just like top 5, something like that. But if we're like we discussed earlier, like 8 to 12 range, I don't want to draft a quarterback because I don't want to hope and pray on like, oh, this is the great pick. And we know number 1 pick, number 2 are not for sure as well. But I'd rather roll with Spencer next year and let us see him under a full season if he's the starter, because obviously they're gonna bring somebody in if Carr is not there. This is me assuming Carr won't be there. But in the Jake Hagener situation, you hit it on the head with we owed him. They felt they owed him something, which in the NFL, that's not a thing. You don't owe nobody nothing. You have to earn it. And obviously, we saw Spencer outplay him with Jake Hagener being a year under the same system. Not the same system because Clint came in, but with the same team. So obviously we see Spencer's better player than Jake Hagener, better quarterback, because me and you, we were fair. We said, hey, we get to see Jake this week. We get to see what he got. We thought Spencer was better, but if Jake would have came out there and balled out, we would have had to face the fact and be like, second, well, not even second, third string, fourth string, fifth string wide receivers they dealing with. We only got Kamara, Taysom Hill out, all our weapons out, and he played a good game, but he didn't. He struggled mightily, missed some throws. Like you said, he let a couple plays throw him off his rhythm, and obviously you would like to get it back in the second half. If you're a quarterback, I get where he comes from there. He had a short lease on him, but that basically said what you said. They didn't want him starting anyway. He basically got the start off of sympathy.
Right. And to that point, and a few people were saying this on Twitter too, I think it also showed us that Rizzy can't be a head coach. And if you can't have that conversation with Jake saying, hey, look, man, I know what you think you deserve, but we watch it in practice every day. We know what the two of you bring to the table. And one, we think Spencer gives us the best chance to win games, but we also believe that Spencer is in a better position to lead this organization moving forward. You got to have that conversation with Jake and just live with it. And you basically ruined his confidence. I'm sorry. I mean, and I was telling someone, I mean, I don't ever think it was a physical limitation that was holding Jake Hagener back. I always just felt like it was the mental of, now you're in the bright lights and what do I do? And I'm thinking too much instead of just playing the game and letting everything just come to you. And you just ruined it. Because not only did Spencer come in the second half and play well, you really just didn't give me a chance to play through my mistakes. I mean, it's 14-0 at half.
Yes.
There's a lot of balls.
Game still in the balance.
Washington went down, kicked the field goal. They're up 17-0. And you have Spencer in. You didn't allow me to play through my mistakes. And we saw 3 starts. You allowed Spencer to play through his mistakes, whatever they were. And you didn't give me that grace. And I think as a young quarterback, there's going to be a long hill for, I think, Jake to climb mentally. And whether he's on our roster or finds a career elsewhere in the National Football League, I hope he does at least get in a situation where if he is put in that position again to get into a game, that the coaching staff and everybody's making that decision, they do have the full confidence in him that he can get it done. And what we saw was that the Saints just didn't. And I think Rizzy has a learning curve. If he wants to be a head coach one day, then you just have to have the hard conversations, man.
Right.
We see it. We see the film. We see what happens in practice every day.
Come in, baby.
You don't deserve anything.
Okay, give me a second.
You don't deserve anything. You're not owed anything. I get the dynamic with you being behind Derek, but we're going to go with Spencer. We need to get more eyes on him. And they just weren't willing to have that conversation with Jake. And Jake didn't look prepared, honestly. And let me know if you agree. It looks like Jake played like a guy that knew he might get yanked quickly. And that's kind of the sucky part about it when it comes to him. Just to, play a little bit devil's advocate on the Jake Hayner side. It just kind of sucked for him that he wasn't allowed to play through his mistakes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He got a little sloppy one time when he I think he threw the ball across his body and it resulted in a pick. That, like you said, that's a young quarterback mistake. Thinking they can get it in there, probably that'll work in college. It didn't work in NFL. And we all can get that. We all seen that. But I think it just all goes to just from when Spencer got drafted by the Saints. We saw the talent from college. And he had a lot of, I should say, press for a 5th round pick. And Jake was kind of put on the back burner by the fan base, and I should say in kind of the media too. So I think Jake, but I don't want to say Jake had a disadvantage. That's just media. Inside the building, obviously it didn't matter because he was QB2 on a at least on a depth chart.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'm not too big. I'm one of those kind of like not old school guys, but I'm not really here to have like pity parties for professional players, NFL and NBA. I'm not here to, oh man, he didn't. My thing is, hey, you go out there, you get your chance, go out perform. The last couple of years in the NFL, man, it's been a year of the backups. Quarterbacks getting hurt left and right now. So many backups have chances to get in there and show what they got to get a starting contract somewhere. I'll get another chance somewhere. I think Jake gonna get another chance because I think his time with the Saints is done. Obviously, they don't believe in him, at least over Spencer Rattler. And my point is, it's no point if you have a veteran quarterback starting. To me, it's no point for 2 young quarterbacks in the building. Have a young quarterback and another, a guy who's been in the league a few years, 5 years, 6 years. That's how I think. There's no reason to have 2 young quarterbacks because one's going to be the second one and one's never going to play. So there's no point for that. Send him somewhere where somebody wants him. Will give him a chance to be QB2 definitively and not just on a depth chart because he's friends or closer with Derek Carr. And when it's time to pick the QB2, you knock him to QB3 and put in Spencer Rattler. Let's not play these games, man. Show the fans who's QB2. It's not that big of a deal. We're not trying to save nobody's feelings of y'all professional players because I would love to hear the explanation for that. You gave it a couple times on here that you're more familiar with Derek Carr, who's in Derek Carr era. I would like to hear from the coach. Obviously, I can't hear from Dennis Allen now, but I would like to hear from Rizzy because I think was Jake Hader still QB2? Yeah. When he still was on a depth chart as QB2. So I would like to hear the explanation behind that. But we got one more topic for y'all, man. Trey's Bucks win the NBA Cup, man. 2nd year of the NBA Cup. He predicted it perfectly. I thought my Hawks had them, man, but the Hawks didn't. The Hawks almost had the Bucks, but we didn't get them, man. The Bucks beat the Hawks. I think it was 108 to 100.
I think so, something like that.
Something like that. I watched that game, man. I had a parlay on that game, and Trae Young came through for me. Shout out Trae Young. But the Rockets lost to OKC, just like you predicted as well. And Bucks, man, hold a thunder to 81 points. 81 points, 2000s basketball. Shea had 23, and not too many others showed up. Playoff basketball at its finest. I love games like this. Not 81. I wouldn't not every night 81, but hey, I love those games like that. But what do you think of the Bucks showing up, man?
I mean, kind of like kind of what we talked about. It, you know, that they're starting to find their stride a little bit. With obviously the dynamic between Giannis and Dame, and I believe Giannis kind of spoke to that. I guess he was on his brother's podcast, and he was saying, it's everybody expected us to be Shaq and Kobe right away, and we just kind of had to figure out how do we work together, and they're starting to kind of figure that out, which is great. Chris Middleton coming back has been huge for them, and you mentioned them holding OKC to 81 points. I think one thing a Doc Rivers team will do is play defense and play hard on that side of the ball. And they're starting to figure out, who are their guys in those units, and not just in the interior. Obviously, Giannis can rim protect. Brook Lopez has been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate the past few years. Bobby Portis hasn't proven that in, but you're starting to get guys like Gary Trent Jr., who is kind of holding it down a little bit on the perimeter from a defensive standpoint, and so they can kind of work with other opposing teams and some of their better players. And then now, from the offensive standpoint, you just let Dame and Giannis do what they got to do. And so whenever you get two stars, in Giannis's case, being a superstar that can kind of just hit on all cylinders, it's going to be great. And I think you can see the Bucks kind of go on a run, finishing pretty high in the Eastern Conference standings. But as always, you have to figure out what is a Doc Rivers-led team going to do in the postseason. And it's typically nothing to do with the players on the court, but everybody on the sidelines, including the head coach. So I was a little surprised that they held OKC to as small of a number, under 100, because when you think about SGA and what he can do, and then Jalen Williams and how he's come on as a scorer this year. But I would say I think this is where you missed a guy like Chet. Hartenstein is great, but he doesn't stretch that floor. Like he's not that rim protector, even that small. As from a being in a slender frame as Chet is, he is still a guy that when he's in the paint, you're not really trying to attack him, regardless of who you are. Wemby is probably the only player that just goes at him in this league, and vice versa. So, they're really missing Chet, and even from an offensive standpoint, Chet is a guy that he's going to spread the floor and allow an SGA to kind of get in his midi, get to the rim, and obviously get to the free throw line. And when he's not in the game, that just makes it a little bit more difficult for him to get in certain lanes. And now the defenses can corral him a little bit more and focus on him and try to take him out of the game as much as they can. So I think this kind of really showed they miss Chet a lot and what he can do, and even what he can do as a decoy on the offensive end that can keep a guy like Brook Lopez out of the paint, keep a guy like Giannis out of the paint. And so their guards and their slashers can do a little bit more getting to the rim.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that analysis, because Chet, like you said, also he's a good playmaker. He can handle the ball, put the ball on the floor, and get to the rim. He's not just a stretch four who spots up and catching threes in the shot blocking. He's a good on ball defender as well. Obviously he's pretty small, but he's long, he's lengthy, he's kind of like a 3 inches shorter Wemby on the floor. Obviously he's not as what I should say versatile as Wemby, because Wemby does.
I don't know. He's probably a little more polished offensively than Wemby is, I would say.
Yeah, he is. But I'll say, like, he doesn't have the, I guess, the highest potential of that.
I got you. Yeah.
But my baby, right quick, Trey, you take from me.
Yeah. No, man, that's a good point though, man. Like Chet is, he kind of has what it takes. I think like I said, I think he's a little bit more polished offensively. Probably doesn't have the cylinder or the highest ceiling, because Wemby is option one. And like, then there's a few other options before you get to the second guy on the Spurs totem pole. Whereas OKC, they have SGA, they may have Jalen Williams, then maybe they may go to Chet. And so there's really obviously there's a clear order in terms of SGA being the top offensive guy for OKC, but then there's who's the second guy. And they just haven't gravitated to Chet being that clear-cut number 2 or clear cut 1A, whereas Wemby is Wemby's team. He's going to get the shots and the opportunities that maybe Chet doesn't get right now. So, we'll see. But they, like I said, they really miss Chet. I wasn't surprised the Bucks won. I just felt like they were getting hot at the right time. Their 2 stars were playing extremely well. They got a guy back again in Chris Middleton that's kind of the lifeline of their team. They're just a totally different team when he's available to play. It has nothing to do with his stat line. It's just him being available just brings so much juice to that organization and to those players, because a lot of those guys have been together for a while and we kind of forget that. And so, having him be back is just so big for them, mentally and emotionally more than it is tangibly with the physical aspect and what he's going to bring in the box score. And the more they can kind of maybe monitor him, keep him healthy enough to go through a playoff run, maybe he may, break the Doc Quivers curse and get Bucks back to title contention. You still muted.
The Isaiah Hartenstein free agent signing probably was the biggest one this year, because with Chet getting hurt, they don't have nothing after Isaiah on that front line, because Jalen Williams is hurt as well, and he isn't that big of a big. I'm talking about the other Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
He's not that big, but yeah. You mentioned the pecking order with those guys. They have some they have a couple guys. Lou Dort has came a long way as an offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
When we first met him in the bubble, locking James Harden down. Isaiah Joe's a sniper. I love the kid Kassan Wallace, man. He's a defender. He reminds me of Davion Mitchell. Mm-hmm. That dude defends. Those guys, I think he's from Kentucky as well.
Yep.
He's a defender, man. He pick you up 90 feet and he put that pressure on you. So they have some guys more over there. And I think OKC, they'll definitely be in the thick of the NBA Finals this year. So we'll see if they can finally put it together this year with all those young guys over there, bringing in Hartenstein. I'll say this: the Bucks, they getting where they need to be, where we thought they should be at the top of the Eastern Conference. Hopefully they keep going, because I love to see superstars. I would love to see Dame on that stage again. Somebody has to challenge Boston. No disrespect to the Cavs as well, because somebody has to challenge the Cavs as well, because it's just those two up there. Right. But I think obviously the Bucks will be definitely a bigger challenge for Boston, because they have more superstar power over there, unless Evan Mobley and Darius Garland take a big step this year. We'll see. But I love to see Giannis back in the thick of it, competing for an NBA championship, because he was the guy who was supposed to be next up after that 2020 or 2021 beating the Suns. So I would love to see that again, man. But still have to throw a sidebar to those sucky Philadelphia 76ers over there. Their best player got injured. Their best player just got injured.
Jared McCain, bro.
Their best player got injured, man. That's crazy. They rookie. And shout out him. Even though the TikToks, all that, he's been a great NBA player. You can't really, so far, he's been good. He's been their best player. I mean that too. He's been their best player. So, but hopefully they have a LaSalle over there as well. But any other thing for Trey? I know my baby had some interruptions, y'all. She was crying because she couldn't get her shirt off. She's ready to take a bath, y'all. This is Baby Chronicles. So
hey, a baby that values cleanliness, that would be a first that I've ever heard.
She's sitting over next to me with my phone on 1%, butt naked in her Bluey chair. So
Lord.
When that phone goes dead, it's gonna be trouble. So any other thing, Trey?
Nah, man. Look, appreciate everybody that joined us on the live, man. Again, made sure to you can follow me and Tay on Twitter, and let us know some of the content you want us to talk about. Obviously, when we talk about the NFL, there are 32 teams or 31 other teams other than our Saints. There are 30 teams in the NBA, so we want to cover as much as we possibly can. So there are storylines that we're missing out on, man. Just hit us up. We'll add it. We love talking about it. Hell, we'll talk with you on the timeline. So, so it's all good, man. But are we doing Christmas? Because I'm down.
We could do Christmas.
Okay.
We gotta be early in the morning though.
Hey, that's fine with me. Hey, so
we gotta get it before the games. before the
Okay,
games.
so right before y'all start opening y'all presents, y'all join us here at the Bayou Balls podcast. We'll talk about a little something.
Put your little Santa outfit on too, man. Put your little Christmas theme
I'm
pajamas.
having my little jammies on, you know.
Me too. I'm wearing my Grinch jammies. We're gonna be on here then.
Yeah, y'all. This is what kept men look like. You know, we gotta do the pajamas.
We are coordinated, man. Matching PJs each year. But all right, y'all, man. It's the Bayou Ballers podcast. We're gonna see y'all Christmas. That's next Wednesday.
That's Wednesday. Yep.
Okay, next Wednesday. We're gonna see y'all next Wednesday, Christmas. See us before the games. NFL this year, bringing on Christmas games, competing with the NBA. So we'll talk then, y'all. Y'all have a nice night. This is our latest live. We thank y'all. Other than that, peace out.